On today's video, we're going to learn the real reason why Florida is in a drug overdose crisis. I'm literally just going to have to show you guys one single metric of information and you'll clearly see what the problem is. When you compare Florida overdose and arrest records from 2015 to the most recent records available, you can clearly see the problem. Florida's drug overdose death rate literally doubled in that time period. However, despite the fact Florida had more than 2 times more deaths, you went from over 100,000 arrests a year down to less than 70,000. In 2015, there was 1.6 times more drug arrests, but there was half as much people dying from overdoses. Why would you have less drug arrests if you're having over 2 times more deaths? Wouldn't it make more sense for Florida to have more arrests now that 2 times more people are dying from drug overdoses? Why has the state of Florida decided not to prosecute drug dealers and users alike? Wouldn't it just make sense that if you're having more people dying from overdoses, that you would rev up your efforts to arrest people engaging in these activities instead of reducing it? The American Journal of Public Health, whatever the crap that is, published a study saying that the more drug arrests you have, the more people overdose. And not only have police agencies ran with that idea, but even organizations have picked up these articles. Real analytics will prove to you that the complete opposite is true. Florida has seen its death rate from overdoses double since 2015, and its arrests go down by almost half, which goes to show that the complete opposite of the narrative that's being told to people about the situation is actually the truth. Once again, the narrative that we are told about this problem is completely the opposite of what the analytics actually show us. The misinformation that these journals are spreading is actually costing the lives of thousands of people. Florida Department of Law Enforcement agencies should be well aware of the fact that while they're arresting less people, almost twice as many people are dying now in Florida. I made this map of Florida counties showing you which counties have had a rise or a fall in drug overdoses. It's not an exact science, but you can see by the size of the arrows which areas have had the largest increase or decrease in their drug overdose death rates. South Central Florida and northeast of Tampa have had the biggest increases. A few counties like Hernando, DeSoto, and Hardy have had decreases, and southeast Florida has seen decreases. The ratio of drug arrests per overdose deaths right now is 8.47 arrests for every single death. That means that for every person that dies from a drug overdose in Florida, 8 other people are arrested. However, in 2015, the ratio was 35. For every 1 drug overdose death, there were more than 35 arrests. For every overdose death in Florida, law enforcement was 4 to 5 times more proactive in seeking arrests for that. So the question arises, why has law enforcement in Florida retreated from making these prosecutions when people are dying from drug overdoses? Is now almost 5 times less proactive at going after drug arrests when clearly the state is having an overdose death crisis. Now the state of Florida is having over 105,000 people a year being registered medical attention because of an overdose, when back then in 2015, it was less than 28,000 people. Would it make sense for a journal about health who defends the interest of the medical field to pretty much create a misinformation campaign that ensures that now they're seeing more than 4 times as many patients? I really don't have the answers to why the medical field and law enforcement is actually working to create this problem, and the information that they're putting out is completely contrary to what the analytics show. Now, we have talked a lot on this channel on the topic of Florida defending the interest of big corporations, medicine, pharmaceutical companies at the cost of the lives of people in Florida. They're saying that they're doing the complete opposite. They're telling people, hey, we're more proactive than we've ever been at handling this problem. But the analytics will prove that the complete opposite is what's truly going on. A turning point in American policing was the death of George Floyd. With the death of George Floyd, law enforcement was more hesitant of enforcing drug policies with force. Today, we know analytically for a fact that the white population is engaging in drug activities at rates much higher than the African American community. Take a recent case out of Cranston, Rhode Island, right outside of Providence. This gentleman here is a council member who fell asleep because he was taking drugs while driving. He tries to sweeten up the deal with police officers. He tries to subvert the law to the point that the police officer had to remind him, hey, I'm wearing a body camera. You can't just try to bribe me when I'm wearing this body camera. Then he goes on to tell them, hey, keep in mind, I'm working for the city council. Make sure that the news doesn't get a hold of this. If a black person with dreads gets pulled over by the police and starts offering bribes or offering kind of him setting the terms of how this thing's going to go down, he wouldn't be treated the same way. And the question arises, considering how law enforcement in the United States has treated African Americans when they've dealt with a drug crisis versus how law enforcement treats whites now that they are analytically the heart of the problem. Are you willing to treat your white population the same way that you treated your black population? The vast majority of white Americans had absolutely no problem letting law enforcement encroach on the rights of African Americans because they understood or they thought that it would contain a drug problem. But now that it's the white population that has the problem in the state of Florida, the white population is almost 2 times more likely to die from a drug overdose than the black population. However, we've noted that in Florida, the black communities are still being more heavily patrolled, considerably more in places like Melbourne. Therefore, it would make sense that right now in Florida, it should be the white communities that should have the most law enforcement proactively targeting people for possession and sales in white areas. But well, we've seen what the law enforcement has actually done is retract from the problem now that the white community is at the heart of it. A lot of people tell me, Jose, you make everything on your channel about race, as if it was my fault that we're here. When you look at my channel, every single video that I've done on the topic of racism gets incredible amount of views. I don't really get to pick what people click on. This is what you guys, the audience, like to watch. 2 days ago, I did a video on racism and it got 9,000 views. It's about 4 times what a video of me hanging out by the beach would get. Every video on my channel that has gone viral, here are the videos that have got the most views on my channel, has gone viral because the comment section went towards race issues. So I don't get to pick the algorithm. All I know is that when I talk about racism, it gets more views. We got started on talking on this topic with me expressing stories of unfortunate things that have happened to me in my lifetime. Me talking about these stories of racism and discrimination have made me over $100,000. Now the courts, law enforcement, no legal avenue has given me the opportunity to be reimbursed for the damages, the injustices that I have suffered in the United States because of racism. But this little company called YouTube, based out of California, gave me an opportunity to voice my word, which is coming to sorts of my problem. A huge resolution has been being able to voice my story, because what racism does is it takes away your ability to voice yourself. I've been able to voice myself on YouTube, and I've also been able to get reimbursed what the court systems and law enforcement haven't done for me and reinstitute the money that was taken away from me through these injustices. And the beautiful thing is that every dollar of that came from people who were racist, who took their time out of their life to watch my video and comment, which triggered the algorithm, specifically from the people who caused this pain and suffering. It's ironic that the fact that people are racist is actually what pays for my videos about me complaining about racism, which is like a beautiful reinstitution of the damages done. And we're almost to 100,000 subscribers. So I want my subscribers to know that this isn't some agenda. This is just simple math. I went through some bad experiences. I told my stories about it on YouTube, and those stories made me a crap load of money. And the more I told my stories, the angrier these people got that I had a voice to do so. The more they commented and complained, the more money I made. YouTube, the platform that you are on right now, has done incredible things for a lot of people. This beautiful company out of California, which was founded in Michigan, has done more for me and my family than working in Florida for 20 years like a slave. And I'm really thankful to be on this platform and that you guys are part of it. But I do want you guys to understand, I'm not some liberal nut or some, activist or none of that garbage. And if those people that are being triggered are trying to cause detriment to me and my family and to the good people of my community, I have no problem making a huge bankroll off of them. But as long as I'm making a huge bankroll, I'd rather be uploading videos than working out of Walmart. I guarantee you that if today law enforcement was as strict and heavy-handed towards the people that are engaging in these activities as they were in the past towards the black people, then this problem would be resolved in absolutely no time. Take the example of Lee and Collier County, Florida, where I used to live. 1 year, I was detained 52 times by law enforcement, but they never gave me a ticket. So because they didn't give me a ticket and I didn't have any criminal infractions on me during those unfortunate events, there wasn't really a paper trail that you can say that law enforcement was actively profiling me because I was never incriminated or given tickets. But I was being profiled with the constant contact. However, there's no real legal defined framework for what you could compensate somebody if they're just being contacted by law enforcement, but they're not receiving some type of legal action, which is in itself profiling, but it's not so much what you do, it's what isn't being done that's even a bigger picture of racism in the United States. So now after George Floyd, law enforcement isn't going after black people. That doesn't work anymore after George Floyd. But what does work is looking the other way as white people run rampantly through crime. And one of the biggest things that African Americans and Latinos are dealing with in the United States as of an injustice, a civil injustice, isn't what law enforcement is doing. It's what law enforcement isn't doing, like when a black person is the victim or when a Hispanic person is a victim of a crime, then law enforcement refuses to press charges. But if the person pressing charges is white, they move forward with the charges. This is a much more detrimental thing to the Hispanic and the black community. So it's not so much what's being done, it's what's not being done that constitutes a discrimination. Prior to George Floyd, law enforcement was heavy-handed against Hispanics and Latinos. Now, they're not heavy-handed on anybody, but it allows white people now, when they're the source of the problem, to go completely unchecked. If you really want to put a dent in this drug problem, you have to go after the people that are causing the problem. And as we know in the United States, the last thing that law enforcement's going to do is disproportionately go after white people.